Welcome everyone to another episode of Dice and Brushes. This time we are doing the final pack of the Warhammer Imperium Premium Edition of the magazine. So this will only include 3 more sprues, and that will be it for the entire run. This was supposed to end at 80 issues, however, the company that's doing this found it to be extremely successful and ended up going to 90 issues. And we were all more than happy to pay the extra cost for the 10 issues because of its value. So, without further ado, we'll go right to what this one includes on 88. First, we have the base for the Dreadnought, the Redemptor Dreadnought. And we have the final sprue here. Just go over that real slowly. Last time I wasn't sure how many sprues that this vehicle needed. I thought it might only be 2, but looks like we got the third and final for the Redemptor Dreadnought, so that will go to Brett. I'm sure he'll be happy to have an extra. Then, as we go into the issue itself, we've already had a whole bunch of stuff for the Redemptor Dreadnought, its Lord's weapons, so we are finally going into some character lore that we haven't before. If you're a fan of the Space Wolves, like Pat is, we have a little bit of lore on Arjak Rockfist. He's the guy that basically has the Thor's hammer and a storm shield. It basically goes over how he used to be an Iron Priest and his how he became Logan Grimnar's champion. And then we have a little bit of lore on Harold Deathwolf, Lord of the Wolfkin. He is, unfortunately, he does not have a model in 40k at the moment, and he is not particularly prominent in the overall 40k lore, but for the Space Wolves, he is the guy that rediscovered the Wolfen. There we go. So if you are into Space Wolves or you want to know a little bit about them, this is a decent read. However, if you are more into the Tyranids, we do have some lore from an inquisitorial report about various more common Tyranid weapons. Remember, these are bioweapons that they are equipped with. Has one paragraph about the Flesh Borer, about the Devourer, the Spine Fist, a Rending Claw, Bone Sword, and Scything Talons. After that, we got a short story, Oblis and Lyrak, Phase 5. This is, again, Admech Forge World Metallica specifically against some Chaos, especially Nurgle. And it does go over the final phase of Metallica's fate and the endings. Long story short, unfortunately, there is a cycle of purging the diseased Nurgle stuff that's on the planet and it coming back. Purge it, it comes back. You purge it, it comes back. It's not a fun disease for Forge World Metallica, and it's basically limping to its death. As for everybody else that's involved, House Raven for the Imperial Knights has basically lost their home world. So it was successfully defended, but it is basically dying. Then we have Eternal Duty. This is the story of a Space Marine becoming a Dreadnought. Just let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, so not bad. Then we have Warzone Terra. It does tell you how it was once beautiful, but right before the Horus Heresy, but during the Heresy, Dorn had to turn it into a fortification, which he deeply regretted having to do, and that there is a Genestealer cult that the Adeptus Custodes had to fight. But the thing is, with the Genestealer cults, you probably didn't kill all of them. So, and there's also some lore that, oops, let's stay over here. Basically, a Genestealer cult puts out a psychic beacon for a main Tyranid hive swarm. We don't know which hive that they are sending signals to, but it does set up a wonderful future story of Terra possibly having to defend itself against a full-on Tyranid invasion. Then it does have some minor lore about Trajan Valoris, who currently leads the Custodes, and just some very, very minor stuff for the, it's called Solar Vastness, basically just the solar system. It's heavily armored and all that. Then finally, we have the How to Paint Your Redemptor Dreadnought. It, here, I shouldn't say finally, next is what I should say. It does tell you to apply 3 coats rather than 2 thin coats as normal to the Redemptor Dreadnought for both the black and the blue. This goes very much against our role model Duncan Rhodes, who does have his own YouTube channel, by the way. Highly recommend if you have not looked at that yet. Again, just a lot of detail, how to get it, kind of how the heavy metal team did it for an ultramarine style. How to do the base, and then of course the final gallery. So let's see if I can get the final gallery a little bit closer in view there. And it does mention that the shooting weapon arm should be able to tilt up and down. Personally, I would prefer to glue it in the down position myself, but you do not have to. Then this is the last part. The one of the last campaign missions for the Imperium versus the Necrons. Djala, I think it's pronounced, or Jala. I don't know if or Dala. I don't know if the D or the J is silent. And this one, the battlefield setup is very adaptable to 10th edition. All you'd really have to do is take these edges on the deployment zone and put one to the lateral middle of the map and put the other in the opposite corner for each deployment zone. So in essence, each deployment zone would get more shallow but wider. Then on the back we get a little sneak peek into the next and last 2 issues, which we will get to in a moment. Alright, and here we are with issue 89. I was about to say 39 for some reason. Oh well. And here we have Inquisitor Draxis. She's a radical inquisitor, which we'll get more in detail on her lore in a little bit. Oops, let's try to get more of this small sprue in view. She does have a shuriken weapon and power fist. Of course, she does have power armor as well. She comes on a 32mm base. Put that aside to give to Brett. Come on, little bugger. Get in the bag. There we go. Anyway, let's go into 89. We immediately go into some basic lore of Kira Draxis, Lord Inquisitor. Basically, she hates the Necrons with a passion. She is a psyker. She does have a little psychic pet creature which is bonded to her. She has paralysis grenades. Her Shuriken Catapult is called Dirge Singer. She does, of course, have a reactor field, or refractor field, I should say, which in-game is basically just an invul save. If you're going to take her through a campaign, she does have her own little mini missions. Actually, let's see if I can get this a little bit closer to the camera. There we go. It's a little bit better. You can roll for it, or you can choose. So for your campaign, you can have her gain points that way and have her progress. And then we have a little short story about Orgvair, which translates apparently in the apparently translates to the ogre, which is basically a giant warp storm that is affecting the Greater Therian League for the Leagues of Votann. And basically they are trying to hold it at bay until their basically their giant computer can be consulted and give them an answer of what to do. And then let's go to Converging Fates. This is, to me, a far more interesting story than anything the Leagues of Votann do. I'm just not interested in them, so I'm sorry for those of you who are fans. Converging Fates. This is Lord Inquisitor Draxus, basically versus quite a few Necrons. But we're going to go into who this special character is in a little bit. First, it goes into, from Lord Inquisitor Draxus' point of view for a little campaign she is pursuing against the Necrons. And then it goes into Illuminator Zeraz, who is a model that we'll be looking at here in the next issue. It talks about the battle from his perspective. I will not say who won, lost, or tied. Simply that there is quite a bit of detail there. Please read it. Please buy this and read it for yourself. Right, and then we have how to build Lord Inquisitor Kira Draxus. It's not a very long process because there's not many parts. Just be sure to go in order, because if you don't, you might end up missing things. I have with some of these newer kits. I've tried to assemble them out of order, and things just didn't fit together so well. So by all means, these days you actually do have to follow the instructions. Of course, we have how to paint your new Lord Inquisitor with the paints that you have received so far. Although I've never felt that GW has done very well on faces, particularly ladies' faces. And this is one of those models. They just did not do her justice. And of course, we have the ninth edition, I should say, 9th edition datasheet for Lord Inquisitor Kira Draxus. So a lot of this simply will not apply anymore, or has been wrapped up in another ability. This is December 30th of 2023, and the index is still free on the Warhammer community website. Just go to Downloads, Warhammer 40,000, and search, I believe it's Imperial Agents. So we have the 9th edition tutorial of how her Plasma Paralysis and Dominate ability goes together. Then we have one of the last campaign missions called Void Battle, which you would think would mean that you're fighting in space, but you're only technically because you're on a ship when you do this. But otherwise, this particular mission does have an equivalency in 10th edition, because you start with Dawn of War style deployment, and you start out with one objective in the center, and then you each take turns placing an objective marker within some confines. So that is actually pretty darn good and very well balanced. I like it. And of course we have the picture of the Illuminor Xeris model that we will receive in the next issue here. But before we go to that, we have a system at war. This is a sheet kind of just going over the campaign that's been going over so far in the Warhammer Imperium magazine for the Rasmus. Has a little picture of the area. Let's see if I can get that a little bit better. There we go. It has, if the Necrons win, here's your little explanation of what happens. And if the Imperials win, you get this explanation. Come on, little bugger. See if I can get you in there. Maybe it needs to be a little further away. Unfortunately, my camera doesn't seem to want to focus. Otherwise, we got a fold-out hobby decision maker. It basically gives you a guide of what you can do if you feel stuck on a project. This is what GW recommends. So it'll say select a faction, in this case Imperial or Necron, and it gives some of the sub-factions for the Imperials: Adeptus Sororitas, Space Marines, Mechanicus. So you can do this with any faction. Don't be limited to just Imperial or Necron. And it basically gives you a flow chart. But in essence, they want you to build everything that you have within your collection, then paint it, then play with everything that you have in your collection before collecting something else. This is what GW encourages. However, as hobbyists, especially if later, those who have been around a while, we know this doesn't happen very often. But it is a good suggestion. And we'll be right back with the next and last issue. Now, this is the 90th issue and final issue of the Warhammer Imperium magazine. This magazine comes with a base for Illuminor Xeris. It's about the same size, or I should say it is the same size as the Dreadnought from previous. Then here is a little look at the sprue for Illuminor Xeris. Go over that a little slow so my camera can focus a bit. There's a lot of detail on this giant character model. And I'll put that aside for the moment. Of course, because it comes with Illuminor Xeris, we will of course have lore for his weapons. He has an Empiric Overcharger, an Atomic Energy Manipulator, which you see him basically sucking out the soul of some poor guy. His legs are being used to impale as well, and he has his giant Eldritch Lance, which is his primary melee weapon. Of course, if you're doing a campaign, he does have a battle record area, and just like the Inquisitor from previous, he does have his own little mini missions that you can try to accomplish. Let's see if I can get some of that in view here. There we go. And then, before we get to the next page, we do have an advertisement within this for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer. This is basically the Warhammer Imperium magazine, but for Warhammer Fantasy. And it looks like this comes with, I don't know, I know the Aurochs, but I don't know. I think they're the Storm Heralds, or I I don't know, but they're what the other faction is. I just know that they're considered some of the good guys. I don't know if Grimdark is in the Warhammer Age of Sigmar as well or not. And does show what you will get if you choose to go. Let's see, oops, let's go over here. Let's show better. There we go. I don't know what anything. I don't know really anything about Age of Sigmar, but if you want, here's what you can get if you go visit them. If you're more interested in that, you can go ahead and get that as well. I imagine it would be a great way to start playing Warhammer Age of Sigmar in the same way that this magazine was great for starting Warhammer 40k. Now, of course, we will have how to build Illuminor Xeraz. We have a few sub-assemblies in here, but nothing I'll go too in detail right now. Then after that, we have how to paint Illuminor Xeraz. And I should mention, with all character models, do not feel obligated to paint them the way they are on the box. Do not feel obligated to paint characters even as important as Illuminor Xeraz or Rabute Gilliman, anyone, as they are in lore or in the on the box art. You do not have to. They are your models. You can paint them up how you like. So if you wanted to have Luminor Xeras be blue, if you wanted him to be green all around with his weapons being black, you could do that. Whatever you want. Your models, your paint. These are just suggestions that the company GW knows looks pretty darn good. Then, if you paint Illuminor Xeraz as he is on the box art, so to speak, see, that is roughly what he will look like. After that, we have the 9th edition datasheet for Illuminor Xeraz. I've not, although I have the Necron Codex for 10th edition, I've not really looked into Illuminor Xeraz, so I don't really know off the top of my head how much of his weapons and effects have continued into 10th edition. Of course, we do have the tutorials on how his empiric overcharger and mechanical augmentation, along with the atomic energy manipulator, used to work. I do not know if they work the same way now. Then we have the final campaign mission, Assault on the Pylon. This is one where we had this. This is what we had the story of in the previous, with the Inquisitor Draxus attacking the pylon that Illuminor Xeras was building. And this one actually puts the Necrons at a army disadvantage from the start. It has them go at 85 power level, with the Imperials being at 100. As a compensation, it has the Necron Noctilith Pylon. Each battle round, it gets closer and closer to the Imperials. It's not a physical part that you move on the board, it's just an effect in game, which starts off at Battle Round 1 with -1 leadership for all Imperials. Battle Round 2 -1 to the move characteristic. Battle Round 3, -1 to advance and charge rolls. Battle Round 4, -1 attacks to a minimum of 1. And Battle Round 5 applies -1 toughness. These are cumulative effects as well. So I don't know off the top of my head if that is balanced. I cannot say. I would have to play this mission a few times to really know. And on that back inside cover, we do have some beautiful art that has been prevalent throughout the magazine, throughout the binders that you've been receiving. And then finally, we have a thank you from Warhammer Imperium Magazine. Congratulations, you have completed the Warhammer 40,000 Imperium collection and taken your first steps into the wider world of the Warhammer hobby. An exciting future of collecting, painting, and gaming awaits. And then in the background, it has almost all of the covers from previous packs right on there as a background. If you did not have a chance to purchase the premium version of this magazine while it was running, I'm sorry. For those of us who have been able to do so, especially for all of you beginners, this was probably going to be one of the best values that you get in terms of models. But that is it for the Warhammer Imperium magazine. I hope you all enjoyed these videos. Until next time, get your shit painted.